Pop Culture Pastor.
So Cody, I was reading an article today about how gas station food is like becoming more gourmet.
Don't do that.
What do you have against? You're not a fan.
Like, gas station food is a staple of Americana, as I will word it, and I don't think we need to alter it. You leave it alone, people.
Something called QSR magazine. That sounds made up, but apparently it's something that exists. QSR magazine reports that convenience store chains across the country are actively working to change the perception of gas station food by taking a fresh approach to their food offerings.
Well, Quentin Smith Ross, I don't like it.
Who's Quentin Smith Ross?
QSR? That's what I'm assuming it stands for.
All right. The first thing they bring up is Casey's.
Okay.
Casey's, a chain of gas stations and general stores through the Midwest, the article says, is a stalwart in convenience store cuisine.
My friend Jackson, he will stop in random places, cities, when he sees a Casey's. He's like, they have a Casey's? Let's go there.
What does he like there? What does he get at the Casey's? Do you know? Is he a pizza guy?
So, I've seen him get pizza, but he has been known to just even get a chocolate milk. So
he's a simple guy. Get this. People absolutely love Casey's Pizza.
Yes.
So much so, this is going to blow your mind. Did you know it's the 5th largest pizza chain in the United States?
I can get behind that.
What are we looking at here? Pizza Hut, Domino's, Little Caesars,
Papa John's.
Those are the 4 ahead of it probably. And then there's Casey's.
And
that's kind of mind-blowing.
Whatever LeBron's pizza place is.
I've never heard of it. No way that's above it. Casey's got to be bigger than that.
I was going to say that's number 6.
Okay. Wrong. Pizza's number 6. Are you a fan of Casey's Pizza?
Yeah. So they used to have a barbecue beef pizza that was just plain barbecue beef, cheese, and the sauce was barbecue sauce. And it was delightful. And then they did away with it. And then they brought back something that was more gourmet and had 50,000 things that I had to request to be off of it. And to get close to the similar experience I had.
If this is your first time listening or you're unaware, Cody has a very simple palate.
No, I have a very delicate palate.
He has a very delicate palate, like I said. And there's a lot of things that Cody will not eat.
They throw on jalapenos, onions. I'm good with
stuff.
I'm good with them adding the bacon. I was like, okay, this is the spice of life I'm needing.
Well, okay, you said bacon. So, one of the stalwarts of Casey's Pizza, everyone around here knows of the legend of Casey's breakfast pizza.
My wife's a huge Casey's breakfast pizza guy or gal. I am okay with it.
You're just okay with it?
Yeah, but I'm not a breakfast pizza guy.
It's so good, and it's one of those things that as you're eating the pizza, the breakfast pizza, oh, this is horrible for me.
Yeah.
This is probably 8,000 calories. This is you eat a couple, if you eat one slice of Casey's Pizza and you probably feel it all day. You eat 2 slices, you go immediately to the doctor and get ready for your pre-diabetes check. Because it's so good. It's one of those things that's so good you feel like there's no way this isn't just terrible for me.
I'm holding out hope.
It's kind of heavy, but it's mythological around here. I mean, people just kind of swear in the Midwest by Casey's breakfast pizza.
There was one at my office the other day.
Yeah. It's got a cheese sauce instead of a regular pizza sauce. Oh, man. But not only that, they have a taco pizza, which is pretty good, but I get it without the chips.
My wife complains that there's not enough chips.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Doritos, they crunch them up. They get all soggy almost immediately. Then they're not good. Nobody wants soggy Doritos on their pizza.
I don't know. People like the chips.
Okay, there is one weakness to the Casey's pizza, and I'll talk about it when we get back.
Okay.
So, of all the years of pizza in America, where pizza has become, I mean, it's not wrong to say pizza is a mythological food in America. It's just so ingrained into our society as like it's a party food. It's the food of youngsters, right? Kids love pizza.
Yeah. And it's kind of weird that, like, for chain pizza, the Midwest kind of reigns supreme.
Yeah.
Because Pizza Hut starts out of Kansas. And
But-
then, like you said, Casey's is the 5th largest pizza chain.
Yeah. Yeah. And so pizza's huge, especially here in the Midwest. And if you think of all the ways that pizza's tied to our culture, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Oh, yeah.
they love pizza.
Is it a Goofy movie? that
Yes.
They have, like, the most amazing looking cartoon pizza I've ever seen.
I saw an article yesterday when we were studying for watching the Goofy movie, because we talked about it on our podcast, that someone wrote an entire article saying it's time to own up and face facts that we're never going to find the pizza in a Goofy movie.
Yeah.
Which was weird to me because it's a cartoon. It's
No.
like, yeah, it's not a real pizza.
It looks so phenomenal.
But pizza's like ingrained in our social, cultural
I
consciousness.
mean, the NFL has an official pizza supplier or pizza company that they recognize and gets the NFL seal of approval.
when you were in school, you had pizza parties for certain
Yeah.
things. It was celebration. If you read books, you got free pizzas.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
Pizza is just like this thing that's
Youth
ever
group
present.
Stable food item is pizza.
So pizza's like there, it's ingrained. Cold pizza, when you're college age, man, even high school age, cold pizza was the thing. It was legit. You'd wake up the next morning. Do you need to fix breakfast? No, it's grab and go, baby. You just open up the pizza box and start eating the pizza. Cold, you don't have to warm it up. Perfect breakfast food. Except for Casey's. Here's my problem with Casey's, Cody.
Oh.
Their crust, I don't know what it is about that, because their crust is amazing fresh. Overnight, no go, bro. It is the worst leftover pizza ever, in my opinion.
I will agree about the crust once it gets left over. Like,
Yeah. I don't know what it is about it.
it is amazing the night and day difference between fresh Casey's and leftover Casey's.
I've
'Cause
never seen anything like it.
my barbecue pizza that I miss dearly.
You talk a lot about this pizza.
It was phenomenal. Casey's, bring it back. They like, I would keep it left over, and then like I'd heat it up, and then like I'd eat 4/5 of that slice and just leave the crust behind. But like even the base layer doesn't taste like it did fresh, and so.
Yeah, it's so weird because if I'm wanting fresh pizza in my town, in our town, and we have a few choices, I would probably go with Casey's. Like I think hot and fresh, their pizza might be the best. But yeah, leftover, I have never seen, because I love cold pizza. I've never seen anything like it. But their pizza is just barely edible leftover. Mm-hmm. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Heartbreaking.
It is weird though, because gas station / convenience store food is so a part of our culture. Mm-hmm. Like for me, what I remember, something that's a really sweet memory, is me and my friends after school in middle school. We had this convenience store that was sort of near our neighborhood. Like it was, like a half mile kind of outside of where our neighborhood was. And we would go there after school and we would get, they had like the nacho machine, right? that was like, it's like that processed cheese, same kind you get at the movie theater or whatever. But we'd get nachos, a big Mountain Dew, and they had a pinball game. And man, Cody, we would just hang there for hours, like 2-3 hours after school.
And they were like, "Get out of here, hooligans!"
Oh no, man, we got nachos and a drink. And they had the game for a reason.
Once the nachos were gone, get out of here, hooligans!
Oh, the nachos were gone quick. And listen, I'm full admission, I am an unabashed fan of gas station nachos. Yeah. That processed cheese, give me processed cheese sauce. Yes.
Dave is wanting a processed cheese sauce machine for his home.
Oh my goodness, I never even thought of the idea. Can I get one of those? Like, could someone gift me a nacho machine? Is that a thing that could really happen?
Yeah. And you could have nachos at youth group now.
Oh, no. That would stay in my home. That's for me. Oh, if anyone wants to get me the best Christmas gift ever for next Christmas, here's an early start.
He's giving you 11 and a half months notice.
A nacho machine. Oh, my wife would hate it.
She would.
She hates like kitchen appliances because like the layout of our kitchen's rough. We don't have a lot of counter space.
Ditto.
So we don't have enough room, but that would get a prominent place. I'm put my foot down.
Every football and basketball game party at Dave's house.
Nacho machine. Yeah, that's what I remember, man. Those were good times. It was called Miller Mart. And man, I wouldn't trade those memories for anything. Seems like we weren't doing much, and we weren't. But man, those were some good memories. Just little Mountain Dew, little nachos, and some friends and some pinball.
Good times.
Yeah, that was it. So, Cody, I saw this thing they do in Finland.
Eat lutefisk?
Besides eating lutefisk.
I don't know what else they're doing.
Well, they're eating a lot of lutefisk. I'll tell you that much. I don't even know what that is, but I'm sure they're eating a lot of it. Apparently, there's a thing in Finland, and especially up in the northern Arctic area, where you take naps in a hammock outside in the Arctic. And it's like it's one of those hammocks that kind of cocoons around you.
Okay.
So you're like, you got a blanket, but there's really there's no heat source. You're in there and you take naps out in the cold weather. So I'm reading this article where this guy tried it. He said, for about half an hour, I lay in winter silence, watching the trees above dance under a blue sky dotted with cotton candy clouds. He's being very poetic.
He is.
As I breathe in, the smell of the campfire a short distance away fills my nostrils. I'm at Halipu, a pine and birch forest in Vaitservasa in the Arctic Circle, where this hammock activity called Arctic cocooning is an alternative form of forest bathing. Wait, what's forest bathing?
Now you guys are just making up stuff.
You're just making stuff up. No, apparently this is a thing that people pay to do. Do we pay to do this?
I'm not paying to do this.
You don't have any interest in going to Finland?
Like
doing some Arctic cocooning.
I could do that when we have the Arctic blast here. Just pull out the hammock and sit on the back deck and freeze to death.
Well, maybe you should. Apparently there's some sort of properties that are good for us. It's not uncommon in Finland for parents to put their babies outside in cold weather to sleep in sub-zero temps.
I have heard that.
Yeah, but how? Like, won't you get frostbite? I'm confused. Nothing's exposed, I guess.
Building up endurance.
What I mean,
to the cold.
this is fascinating to me. This is fascinating.
They do eat lutefisk in Finland, but it's pronounced differently there. Lutefisk is the Swedish way of pronouncing it.
Oh, okay. What do they call it?
I can't pronounce it.
I love that your research mode went into high gear. You were going to find out what lutefisk was.
Oh, I know what lutefisk is.
Oh, what is it?
It's fish that's not cooked, but it's like doused in lye. And that's how they cook it. It's in lye.
Oh.
And it's a delicacy in like Scandinavian countries. I knew what lutefisk was. I just didn't know if they called it that in Finland.
Yeah, I'm probably not down with that. I don't think I'm going to eat that.
I have a recipe book that has lutefisk in it.
Did you have to cook it?
No, I've never made it, but I can if I want to.
Oh, see, that just says to me like they've probably never tried cooking it. It probably tastes just as good if you cook it.
Yeah, I don't know.
They bathed it in lye because that's all they had. They couldn't make a fire. It was too cold. So, this thing in Finland, this family. So there's this whole story about this forest in Finland where they do this Arctic cocooning.
Okay.
But there's all sorts of like forest love going on here.
Sounds very hippie-esque.
It is kind of, but they've got a whole story about World War II and how their family kind of settled in this forest and then determined that they were going to preserve it, which, you know, that's good. Good for them.
Yeah.
And so they love this area, and they come up with this idea. The family, they were kind of joking around. They said, let's adopt the trees to the people of the world as hugging trees. So you can go to this forest in Finland and not just do Arctic cocooning, because he says, I immediately felt that was a brilliant idea and started developing the thought further. Tree hugging.
No.
An element of forest bathing, which I'm still not sure what that is.
No.
Is known for its health. Like, listen, hold on. They present this information like all scientific, like tree hugging is known for its health benefits, including reduced stress levels, boosted immunity, and lowered heart rate and blood pressure. Wait, from hugging a tree? Like literally being a tree hugger?
In these here United States, that is a dirty term that we don't use.
I mean, I'm not ready to go there, but I do need some explanation.
Oh, I know why. I mean, theoretically, it should release positive endorphins because we do like to express emotions of love. And like the physical action of hugging is one of those things that causes our brain to be like, okay, we're releasing this. And if you're that in tune or in touch with nature, I mean, I guess I can see where like, oh, I'm really feeling this. But I would say it's more of a placebo effect in my mind.
Hey there, tree. Yeah, you, tree. Man, I love you. But I'm going to give you a hug.
I want the studies done on if hugging the tree helps the tree grow. Because there's the studies about like talking to plants that it does help stimulate growth within plants.
Well, that's going to be a long study because you'd have to probably study it for several years with a control group of the non-hugged tree. And then we get into a whole other thing. Are we abusing the tree mentally?
Are we
the one that's
always,
not being hugged?
Are we always happy when we're hugging the tree? What if I'm angry and I'm hugging the tree? Does that give off negative desired effects?
Incidentally, I've recently been told that my hugs are life-changing.
Well, way to go.
Yeah. I didn't know this about myself, but apparently one of my youth group kids, he said, I used to think I didn't like hugging, but then Dave hugged me. And now I know that that's my love language. So I'm just, I'm putting people in tune with their love languages. Hugging me will change your life. That's probably.
You need to try out the forest stuff and let us know, and maybe we can change our lives again.
I can only conclude that if I hugged a tree, it'd become like a redwood. Like it would immediately grow into this massive tree. There's something about my love, Cody.
There's some people that I've hugged that I'm like, these trees might turn into cacti.
Yeah, the whole trick to being a good hugger is it's got to be genuine. It's got to be authentic.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do the side hug. Like my family's big on the side hug. Like I'm just a little too macho. Even the ladies, they're just a little too macho to get too close to you, or they're awkward. But it can't be the side hug. I mean, I always tell people when I hug them, like, okay, come in here for the real thing, though. I'm not doing that side hug or the one where I'm like leaning forward. Like, we're coming in for the real hug.
I feel I used to be a great hugger, like phenomenal at hugging.
This is like the start of a movie. This is like a Dickens novel.
Yeah.
I used to be a great hugger. Okay, continue.
But like you work for so many entities that talk about like, oh, you don't hug. You don't do that. If someone comes up to you, you don't turn them away from the hug, but you
got stiff arm 'em.
You tell them we can only do a side hug, buddy. Just that one arm. And so it does change you like mentally and physically. Yeah. I'm more cold now because of the industries I've gone into.
It's such a tough place to be like a male now, because like we have to worry about like someone accuses you of something, then it's just like there's no coming back from that, even if there's nothing to it. And I'm just like, at some point, I think at some point, because I got told that too, is like, well, you can't be alone with, a female. You can't but what if someone you're the person they want to talk to, and they're not going to talk to anybody else? I just don't know. I'm going to err on the side of, loving human beings, I guess. And then if I get cut down in that, that's what the world does. I'm willing to take the risk, I guess what I'm saying. I'm coming in for the full hug. You want a real hug, you come to me. And there's nothing weird about it. There's nothing wrong about it, man. It's just a hug.
We better be good friends and then we can hug. And you get the most genuine hug from me. But like right now, I'm like in that halfway. Do I do the real hug or do we just do the one arm? Because I have been desensitized by the machine.
All right, I'm going to start the music and then we're going to hug. We're hug. I'm coming for you, buddy. All right, welcome back. So this place, Hallipuu Forest in Finland. Apparently this is a place where you can go, you can adopt a tree. You purchase a tree from the forest and then you visit it to experience the healing power of nature and tree hugging. But the family, they wanted to do more. So they came up with the idea of Arctic cocooning. Quote, I had a vision of hammocks hanging between the trees and it immediately made sense to me. Well, the part that made sense to her was probably the part where we pay money to do it.
Oh, yeah. Adopting a tree, like depending on the species
in
of
Finland?
trees, like it could live forever. And like
this place is literally in the Arctic Circle.
And you are selling trees in the frozen tundra. I'd rather waste my money if I'm going to waste my money on adopting an inanimate object. Just let me adopt one of those stars that from the websites that like, oh, when you look up in the northern sky with a telescope of this magnitude and you go to this coordinate, that dot that looks really fuzzy, yeah, you adopted that star, buddy.
Well, at least you could go visit your tree. That's the whole point. They want you to adopt a tree.
Greta,
and I guess maybe it's like the compassion thing where they send you pictures of the tree.
I was going to say
it writes you letters.
Greta would not appreciate me getting in a plane and going to visit this tree.
Greta's not the issue here. Let's imagine Greta doesn't exist. We don't have to worry about making Greta mad. But this is like I would think Greta would appreciate this because we're literally hugging trees in the Arctic Circle.
The carbon footprint to get to my tree.
Look, this person who wrote this article, they leave. This is the last paragraph.
Okay.
I gaze around the forest, looking back at my hammock strung between two trees, the smoky campfire, and rows of trees standing in the forest, waiting for a hammock or a hug. This place was never meant to be cut down. It was meant to bring joy and relaxation to those who don't get to see magic like this too often. It was meant for Arctic cocooning. I say goodbye to my tree and make my way through the snow, hoping to return one day for a bit more Finnish solace. This is NPR.
You know what? I am selling the adopting rights to the trees in my yard. Because you don't need to go overseas to adopt. You can adopt right here in the U.S.
Why are we adopting so many foreign trees? We got plenty of trees that need to be adopted right here in America.
Oh.
And you can do all the cocooning you want right here. It's just not as cold because we're not in the Arctic.
It can be.
Yeah, it can be. Let's try it. Do you have 2 trees in your yard?
I do.
Can we tie a hammock between them?
We'd have to get some rope, but yeah.
Okay, next time we get a cold snap, we're Arctic cocooning at your house.
It's happening.
And hugging trees. Yeah! So, Cody, I'm interested. Why do you think that people ignore the Reverend in the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King?
So this is something that has been on my radar.
This is MLK Day. We're
Yes.
recording this on We're on the radio on MLK Day.
Yes. I think that with some of the movements that have kind of latched on to some of the protest of racism that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led, that it's a lot easier to disassociate him from the faith, because at times there's either a loud vocal group that claims to be of the faith and hates this group of people or doesn't like what this group of people does. But we do love us some Martin Luther King Jr. And so if we can keep him and attached, well, we're just an offshoot. And so it gets more publicity, more positive PR, where if you completely ignore the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you miss his motivations. Yeah. You miss a lot of his talks that we quote. Are sermons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, was the man perfect? No. But did he speak genuinely? I would say most of the time, yep. And that the world is doing its worldly thing of this had some power, and so we're going to latch on to it, but we're going to rob it of its true identity of like, I believe every man and woman and child should be treated equally because Christ loves all.
Yeah. So there are rules with the title of Reverend.
Yeah.
The title of Reverend is always supposed to come first.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a doctor and you're a Reverend, it's Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
The calling is higher than the degree.
That was what I was told. But I got to admit, I didn't notice this until you said something.
Yeah. It literally, President Joe Biden was the first one on my Twitter newsfeed that actually put Reverend in front. Like, even Dr. King's daughter did not. And so, like, now,
Well,
it's like,
Dr. King's daughter does tend to be pretty political. I follow her on Twitter.
yes.
And she tends to be pretty political. That would be why you would omit it, right? Is for political reasons, which makes really super interesting, because you're right. When I'm perusing through the news feed, most of them say doctor, not Reverend, and they omit Reverend. And yet Joe Biden put Reverend, which super interesting to me.
Yeah. Which I am amazed by some political groups that do drop the Reverend, just because that guy that beat Herschel Walker in Georgia, Reverend
Warnock.
Yeah. He's a Reverend. And so, and tends to be on the more progressive side of politics.
I get emails from him all the time.
I do too.
Raphael Warnock, and he needs my help.
He needs money
financially
to be whoever.
I get emails from him and Nancy Pelosi. Yeah.
But I think that you miss out on a significant portion, when you drop that title from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s name.
I agree. So when I was growing up, I didn't know that much about Martin Luther King Jr. And then I started reading books after high school because I was not much of a studious person at all until I matured a little bit. And then I wanted more information. I actually read several books about Martin Luther King, about the civil rights movement. I read several books about Muhammad Ali and his ties with the civil rights movement. And of course, we're talking about this here on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And we've been talking about like how in the modern references to it, people drop the Reverend out of his titles for probably political reasons. And it's kind of shocking and striking because if you know anything about, like if you've read books about Martin Luther King or you've done studying, you understand that the foundation of everything he does is the Bible. The foundation, the man himself would probably say the most important part about him was Reverend, not doctor.
Yeah.
And because all the things we quote were from sermons. All the whole basis for his civil form of protesting comes from Scripture, comes from the words of Jesus of loving your enemies and praying for them. So it's really weird to see our political stances and places to be in a place where we're going to try and erase that from the man. Even his own daughter doesn't, you mentioned when she posts about it, she drops the Reverend title, which I find super interesting. Because I'm just like, no, I'm pretty sure, basing this on everything I've read about that he said, that part probably would have been the most important to him. And if you look at it, it provides the teachings of Jesus, provide the basis for everything the Reverend Martin Luther King does in that arena. He had brokenness just like us.
He did. And when I was growing up, I had the opportunity to go to New York and DC through the state level denomination youth thing. And it was called International Affairs Seminar, which was basically like how to be religious and how to be political, yada, yada. Kind of weird mix. But we did go to Riverside Church in New York City. And one of the big things that they promote, and it's this beautiful, like Gothic style cathedral building, is, MLK gave this sermon here. And MLK did this here, and yeah, like you said, we a lot of his quotes come out of sermons. The reason that the protests that they do are nonviolent is because Jesus said, "Turn the other cheek," and so we're doing that. And there's a lot of Christian influence behind his branch of the civil rights movement, or the church's response during the civil rights movement, compared to others like Malcolm X, who early on in his endeavors, it looks almost like a 180 from the outside. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I would argue that the legacy of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. is bigger than just equality. Of course, that's a hugely important piece. But I think the reason that he is revered is because of his stance and his commitment in the way that he would fight this fight. The civil rights movement would be under the teachings of Jesus. The way he did it. Like if he was like, look, Malcolm X is just as big of a figure.
Oh yeah.
But he's not in our consciousness. He's not from community to community. And the reason is because we instantly know there's something to revere. There's something to respect about someone not choosing the worldly power.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to my Eucharist days, and I mean, literally, the band U2 wrote a whole verse in the name of love about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., about his life, about his sacrifice, and about that it was all done in the name of love.
Yeah. And more so than anything, let's just talk about impact. Is there any other American who's had more of an impact on our society than Reverend King? Is there any? I mean, who are you gonna maybe Abraham Lincoln, I suppose? But it's close.
Yeah.
Lincoln's not really much in our consciousness anymore, but Martin Luther King is. So in my way of thinking, I think he's the most influential American to have ever existed. And the reason is because he changed things while not choosing the ways of the world. And the ways of the world eventually got to him. They killed him.
Mm-hmm.
But he constantly chose the ways of peace, the ways of meekness, gentleness. We are not going to lash out in anger. We are not going to do these things. And I think that that's bigger than the equality stuff, right? Because if you're that way, if you're displaying the fruits of the Spirit, obviously Martin Luther King Jr. put a lot of importance on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. If you're living that way, equality is going to happen.
Yeah.
As a byproduct. And he understands that. He understands that if we're doing this the Jesus way, then everything else that's broken gets fixed. And that's his legacy.
I mean, look at the amount of schools, the amount of roads, everything that is named after him. And he definitely didn't ask for that.
No.
And it's kind of like the devotional hour that Forrest Gump didn't ask to get the Presidential Medal of Honor, and yet there he is getting it. And so, like, it's amazing how just when you're not all about yourself and you're about others and love and meekness, humility, that you get acknowledged for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how we have all these little signs that back up the truth of the things Jesus would say. And yet in our day-to-day lives, they get lost to us. Our default setting is to go for worldly power. And yet here's a day where we celebrate specifically a man who chose the ways of Jesus. In this venue, in this arena of American politics. And we remember that. Hey everybody, Dave here. What you have just listened to are bits and pieces of our radio show. We have a radio show on KFEX Firescape Radio located in Chanute, Kansas. You can hear that show from noon to 4 every weekday. So if you want to tune into that, you can go to www.kfex931.com, or you can search KFEX in your app store on your smartphone and find their totally free app there. If you're a fan of Christian music, you might like to listen to our live show when you're at work, or if you're a stay-at-home mom and you like music in the house, you may love to listen to that during the day. So give it a try. We would also direct you to our podcast, Pop Culture Pastor. That's probably why you're listening anyways to this version of what we do. As always, subscribe to the podcast, follow us on our social medias on Facebook and Twitter. It helps us out when you share it, when you review and rate us on our podcast homes. And of course, follow us on social media and share our stuff there. So thank you so much for listening. We love all of you guys so much. We have such a great community of listeners, and we'll see you when the regular pod drops on Friday.